and welcoming Dr. Edward James, licensed social worker, to the Intentional Clinician podcast. Thank you so much for being here today.
I appreciate it very much, Paul.
Yes, and we're going to be talking today about relational annual checkups, or the annual checkup for your relationship. Before we get into that, I do want to have you introduce yourself and a little bit about your background to the listeners.
I appreciate that. And I want to thank you, and I want to thank the Intentional Clinician podcast for providing this platform. Paul, it's so tremendously important that we as clinicians have an opportunity to learn from each other. And your Intentional Clinician podcast is exactly that. It helps us to have an understanding of what is it we do, and also an understanding of what others do. Paul, I have a master's in social work from the University of Wisconsin out of Milwaukee. I did my internship at the Family Institute that is in Milwaukee, and I was supervised by Insu Berg, and parenthetically supervised by Steve DeShazer. Insu and Steve had developed the Brief Family Therapy Center in Milwaukee in 1978, and I finished my master's program in 1976. So both Insu as well as Steve were at the Family Center, and again, having that opportunity to be supervised by her and with her was just an absolute marvelous. I did some advanced training in marriage and family therapy up at the Chicago Institute. And one of the reasons, Paul, that I really liked the program at the Chicago Institute, it had a very wide perspective. And as a social worker, understanding micro, meso, and macro levels of intervention, that really fit into my spectrum. They had some sense of specializations. I had concentrated in men's issues. I concentrated in couples counseling, and I had also concentrated in premarital counseling. Had some other advanced training from the Bowen Center for the Study of Families out of Georgetown. And this was just prior to the death of Dr. Bowen. That was in 1990. Obviously, that has a systems perspective, talking about triangles, talking about mesh families. And through the work with the Bowen Institute, and as well as the Chicago Institute, it really provided me with a sense of what goes on with families. I'm currently in private practice. I am an adjunct faculty member with Arizona State University, as well as Glendale Community College, involved in research, involved in organizational management issues, and I've been at this since about 1976. So I've been at this for a while. My second master's is from Carnegie Mellon University out of Pittsburgh, organizational management, and my doctoral studies were with the University of Pennsylvania out of Philadelphia. Been here in town for 25 years or so. I've stopped counting, but I really concentrate on the development of individuals and couples.
Excellent. Well, you certainly have a lot of experience here, obviously working with individuals and couples from the beginning of your career. And it sounds like, also teaching as well. I know that you have, basically done it all. So you're social worker, marriage therapist, life coach, organizational, educational consultant. And so you're all over the place with all sorts of different projects, which I think is very interesting. So this is a new focus, I suppose, something you've been putting together. This isn't maybe traditional psychotherapy, but it's a very intentional method that you were talking to me about. These relational annual checkups. Can you maybe explain a little bit more about what you're saying? What is this that you're providing for people?
Absolutely. And Paul, this also goes back to one of your previous guests a couple of 3 weeks ago. You had, and I believe her first name is Brittany.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
Brittany Deses. Yeah.
yes, from your staff. She talked about premarital relationship maintenance and couples counseling. And for the listeners who have not had an opportunity to listen to that episode, I really encourage them to go back and look at that. Because when Brittany talks about relationship maintenance, that's
Hmm.
exactly what I do. But it's interesting that her focus is much more of skill building. Her focus is very much of understanding some of the reasons that there needs to be a sense of relational maintenance. And there are a couple whys that she talked about that really filter into the work that I do with annual checkups. She talked about it as skill building. She talked about it that excuse me, occasionally the spark will go out of the relationship. And that's certainly what I have found with many of the couples that I have engaged with this annual marital checkup. The
Hmm.
spark has gone out of the relationship. Many times, couples have themselves in a very functional manner. Paul, I talk about a relational iceberg.
Hmm.
10% of that iceberg is above the water. That's what couples and families allow others to see.
Uh,
90% is below the water surface. And that's where all of the real dynamics are. So when you have children that are gone, when you have emptiness, syndromes, when you have job changes, there are times that the couples begin to take a look at each other and say, okay, so what's next? So I started working with couples in this manner because if we begin to look at our own physical health, we need to be able to go to the doctors on an annual basis. This has also really come out of some traditional dental work. The the Navy and the Army put together several years ago programs that were specifically designed for service members and their families to go to the dentist. It's preventative. I've taken that same type of philosophy and had couples to come in on a preventative method. We need to make sure that we are looking at the relationships from a check in preventative fashion. This is not saying, Paul, that the couples that are coming in to do this are having major issues. I want to see couples before the major issues occur. I want couples to be able to talk about the state of the marriage. We listen to a lot of the political issues down through the years, State of the Union addresses, State of the State addresses. Well, I want couples to begin talking with each other about the state of their marriage, checking in with each other, growing together. And when I start this, Paul, one of the warm up exercises or questions that I have for them, I say to them, and I have this written down so they can read it. Tell me one thing you think that I can improve on, and I can continue to become better for myself, our families, and our marriage. And I give this script, excuse me, I give this script to each one of them and have them physically turn toward each other, read that, and begin to process it. And Paul, it is just absolutely amazing that sometimes couples have not even thought about this state of the marriage because they've been so involved with children, they've been so involved with the jobs, they've been so involved with the community that they really forget about themselves. And the why of the marriage checkups is to really to help to resolve some small issues before the major disasters, getting ahead of it. I want couples to know that they are not only on the same page with each other, but they're in the same book with each other. And it's amazing when I say to them, pages versus books, they kind of look at each other and say, well, I guess I know you. I guess we're on the same page, but we're really not on the same book. We're really not in the same book. So it is an educational process that I have with couples. The benefits, gosh, we know that friendship is the real foundation of relationships. And spouses should be each other's best friends. But it's also amazing when I ask them, who's your best friend? They may talk about the person from college. They may talk about the person down the street, but they neglect to say, well, you are my best friend, because they just simply aren't there yet.
Mm.
It also helps to increase a sense of communication. And communication, obviously, from a relational perspective, is just absolutely critical. We need to constantly commit ourselves to solid communication. Working through some vulnerabilities is also one of those issues, and the reason that I have created this couples relational annual checkup. And lastly, and we're going to get into some of these other ones, but lastly, they've never really experienced for a number of years an emotional relational safe space where they can be vulnerable. They can talk about their needs, their wants, their expectations, their fears within the relationship. That's one of the reasons, Paul, that I have created this annual marital checkup.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many angles to go at, so many possibilities, and so much that, like, especially the prevention aspect. Um, I do think that oftentimes in, let's just say, a monogamous relationship, two people that we're primarily probably discussing here, one person may actually think it's going great, and they aren't thinking about prevention, right? And that while another one may be possibly holding in feelings or not, maybe challenging certain things, or maybe both know that something's a little off. But oftentimes in therapy, I mean, this sounds so like kind of redundant, or maybe overstated, but a lot of times a crisis point in somebody's life brings them into therapy. Just like that, if anyone's ever done couples counseling, oftentimes it's a larger incident or series of incidents or a larger emotional blow up that brings them into couples counseling. Very, the only exceptions of this, I mean, obviously Brittany's program here, at Health for Life Counseling has, made a space for this sort of skill building thing, and less about the crisis oriented family or couples counseling. But anecdotally, most of the time, it does seem like some sort of incident or fight or emotional disruption brings couples in. So, what if couples were being proactive and doing something such as this annual checkup or annual relational checkup to just let them have a safe and open forum to discuss things that might be coming about? And one thing comes into my mind. There are so many transitions in life, and if you're in a relationship with somebody, a romantic relationship, married, or dating or whatever, um, the amount of just things that are going on are just happening at a greater pace. So even if you don't have children, if you do, some people have children, and like children moving out of the house, or children moving back into the house, or your child has a crisis, or something with your work, or people that are retiring, all of a sudden they're going from this routine to another routine, and this can cause disruptions in the relationship. Almost anything can, right? Somebody gets
And I
sick.
call those
Yeah,
and I
go
call
ahead.
those seasons,
Seasons. Okay. Yeah.
because individuals, couples, families go through seasons. And with each season, Paul, there may be different expectations. There may be different ways of communication. There may be ways of just kind of thinking about who they are as individuals. So when they go through these seasons, and things change, all of a sudden the kids are no longer there because they've been operating with that 10% above the water line. And families look at others' families and they say, they're perfect. They're doing all the things right. They are taking the kids to the ball games. They're taking the kids to the faith-based, types of activities. But when they leave, and then there's that sense of an empty nest, things begin to go awry. But it's also interesting that I look at the way that relationships work and being proactive approach. It is like having an oil change, because unless you take your car in on a regular basis to have your oil change, sooner or later your car is going to stop. And you may be out in the middle of nowhere and your car stops because it no longer has oil. Relationships, Paul, are the very same thing. I really encourage couples that come in for these marital checkups, for these relational checkups, to think about how are you going to fill that emotional bank every single day. Because we know that relationships have challenges. And if that emotional bank is empty, you have nothing to draw from. Relationships are hard. And we know that relationships are hard. Looking at some of the challenges. There was a recent study, Paul, that I looked at that said 49% of respondents, and it was a study of 1,500 individuals, had attended some form of couples counseling. 49%. There was an international study that said 70% of therapists, they treat couples. Not individuals, not families, but they look at couples. And then there's a tremendous amount of research that talks about relational stress. 40 to 50% of relationships end in divorce. And I was just absolutely amazed at that. And one of the reasons that I think that they end in divorce is because they have not had an opportunity to re-engage. They have not had that opportunity to re-engage. Another study that I looked at said that couples wait an average up to 6 years after some type of relational challenge before they seek out therapy. 6 years. And you can imagine all of the stuff that happens within the 6 years. They talk about it, they put it underneath the rug. They talk about it, they put it underneath the rug, and it just continues to pile up. One of the other things that was also absolutely amazing, that some of the adverse impacts of relational issues, emotional, physical well-being of their adult partner. And the most frequent cited cause of an actual emotional distress were relational issues. So we know that couples many times are in trouble.
Yeah.
And many times couples don't know how to get out of trouble. So again, creating this relational annual checkup allows couples to come in 2 sessions. One is an assessment, and the second session is a goal planning for the following year. And it really helps. It helps couples to rethink.
Yeah, and I'm curious. Some couples that come in for this checkup, this is just something they can opt into, and I'm curious. Do they get a reminder for next year, or do you just wait for them to call you up, or what do you do?
I asked them after the second session to put it on their calendar.
Okay, nice. Yeah. And then my other question is this. I'm sensing that some couples are going to come in waltzing into this thing going, hey, we are ahead of the average couple here. We are getting the relationship checkup. And all of a sudden, a metaphorical bombshell goes off in your office and somebody says something. And then this is like, okay, we need couples therapy right now to deal with this issue. Does that happen?
Absolutely.
Okay. So
Absolutely.
so would you refer out for that, or do you keep them
Yes.
yourself? Oh, you
Yes.
refer out. Okay.
I want to be able to start that process and start that conversation. And if they say, look, we need to have something more, I have a group that I deal with that I will refer them to.
Nice. Okay, good. So they can get that intensive,
Yes.
intensive therapy that they need. So,
Yes.
and something struck me that when you were reading the statistics, and two things struck me. One is when people reach out for counseling at our counseling center, there are often complaints of depression and anxiety and PTSD and different things like that. But if it's a person over the age of 18, oftentimes just involved in their original complaint of maybe having these symptoms is something like, I just got out of a bad relationship, or I'm in a bad relationship, or I wish I was in a relationship, or when I was young, I had a really difficult childhood relationship with my parents, or something like that. So relationships are really, really integral to humans. We exist in relationship. We're wounded in a relationship. We're loved and healed, possibly, hopefully, in a relationship. And so thus the importance of like you said, you take the car in, the oil change thing goes ding, in the newer cars, it tells you got to go in for maintenance, right? But we aren't being proactive with our relationships necessarily. And so I think this is a really genius idea. Another thing that struck me was this. I heard two stories recently. Two stories. I won't go into both stories because they're sort of confidential. They were not my clients, but just I have friends with a lot of therapists. And they said, this couple's decided to divorce. And I was like, oh my God, what happened? They're like, oh, well, whatever happened, XYZ happened 7 years ago. And another one, same. And I said, you got to be kidding. Yeah, they didn't deal with it. And all of a sudden something came to a head, and then boom, they were just on their way out. They went to a couples therapist for a couple sessions. And then another one, the person said, yeah, I think this couple possibly is going to divorce. I don't know what else to do. I'm trying everything I got. And I said, well, what is it? It was something that happened before they got married.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
They were both of them were hanging on to this situation, and I guess maybe they should have rethink. Maybe they already had the deposit down. I don't know, but they went ahead and got married, and then 3 or 4 years later, it blew up again. It was the same issue. So, like you said, putting it under the rug doesn't do anything. And if we actually confront these issues, or we get some help earlier, right, that resentment doesn't build up. We might have hurt feelings, but that resentment, that toxic, like those deep dark feelings we have towards the other that we're kind of hiding, don't get that time to fester, right? It's kind of like the wound happens. We got to clean the wound out, right? Go ahead.
Right. And going back to the illustration of the dental, healthy preventative care avoids lengthy issues from a dental perspective as well as from a relational perspective. And it's really the type of care that we really need to be able to take a look at. And how is it that we are acknowledging, even for ourselves, that we need to have this sense of prevention? Prevention is absolutely necessary, and it's a part of the nature. And when I think about these relational checkups, it really does look at what I'm calling lifelong relational stability. Because I have been trained by the Gottman Institute, relational stability is a part of my mainstay. Yes, couples have issues and they want to come in and talk about those issues. I want to hear it once. And then let's look at some alternatives. Let's look at some behaviors. Because if they come in time after time after time after time, talking about and complaining and criticizing each other centered around that issue, then nothing gets accomplished. And from a Gottman perspective, most relationships end as a result of neglect.
Mm,
It's that sense of the diminishing intimacy.
mm,
You have physical intimacy and you have emotional intimacy. And what I try to do in these relational checkups is to have them to pay attention to their love, their friendship, their commitment. Um, 2 sessions,
yeah.
the assessment, and then the feedback, and then these are the goals for the coming year. I really want to be able to foster not only friendship, but I want to be able to foster a sense of understanding intimacy. And Paul, it is absolutely amazing to me, couples that come in for these annual checkups do not know how to distinguish emotional intimacy from physical intimacy.
Really?
Just simply not having the concept. So a part of what I do is some teaching.
Yeah. And do you also like recommend they read books and things like that as well?
Depending upon the couples,
Right.
because certainly I can use a lot of the literature, I can use a lot of the books that are out there. If there is one group of books that I will recommend, it's talking about love languages.
Hmm.
Love languages are just absolutely critical. And I think that also what makes this program successful is narcissistically, I have the availability of really 3 types of couples therapy.
Yeah.
I have the background of the emotional focus therapy,
Yes.
the whole sense of self-awareness, kind of aligning behaviors and emotions. I've been trained by the Gottman Institute, and we know that the 4 horsemen are just absolutely critical with the Gottman.
Yeah.
Looking at communication skills, looking at emotional intimacy and emotional literacy, love languages, and really beginning to have them to talk about how do they understand those emotional and those relational bids. And sometimes I have to go back and help these couples to have the clarity about really what a bid is. And the third foundation that I have is cognitive behavioral therapy, dealing with communication, dealing with problem solving issues, kind of aligning thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. So, by taking elements of those 3 very traditional couples therapy modalities, massaging them, and having them organized around these annual checkups.
Yeah, absolutely. You dropped a lot of important knowledge right there because in our field, there are different approaches to couples and relationship counseling. And all of them seem to take into account the dynamics being complicated, not just a surface, like you said, like some sort of surface thing, like in the Gottmans, learning about the 4 horsemen of the relationship apocalypse, which are criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling. Because if those things are prevalent, it's really hard to get people to connect emotionally or physically. And then working on bids, like you said, and I don't know exactly all of the language, but the idea of turn towards and turn away. Can you explain
Yes.
why that is important to the listener out there? Why is that important?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because when I have couples to physically turn toward each other, there is some physiological and there are some relational and there are some brain activities that exist when you are physically looking at someone. I will have couples at the end of the session to physically turn to each other, and I will say to them, I want you to repeat the statement. I appreciate you when. Don't be looking around, look at this person in front of you. Because we know from a neural perspective that our brains operate very quickly. And our brains will put something into categories even before we have the opportunity to conceptualize it. So when you are looking at your wife physically, there's some things that's going on through your brain. And I really want couples to begin to express that. Many times when there's stonewalling, which is a refusal of not dealing with that conflict, there are two ways that couples will stonewall. One will physically just turn away. The other one will physically get up and lock themselves in another room.
Mm-hmm.
That is avoiding the conflict. So stonewalling, contempt, defensiveness, criticism are all woven into my dialogue with couples during these relational checkups. Criticism, that we know, is really attacking the character of the other person. And they really don't realize it, but from the Gottman's perspective, the antidote for criticism is identifying those unmet and those unrecognized needs.
Right.
Those emotional needs, those physical needs. And many times couples are not accustomed to even identifying what those needs are because they feel that it's not important. So in this relational checkup modality, helping them to clearly to identify what those needs are.
Right. And so, I mean, I think giving people language is important, and, giving them a way to be able to contextualize their relationship and being able to think about it. So I think that these checkups are great, and obviously people going into relational or couples counseling can even be a deeper dive. I was curious about folks who maybe are not in a marriage. Well, how do you help them, and how do you kind of advertise or reach them?
Relationships are relationships, regardless whether there's a legal commitment or not. Because even when you have someone who is in a deep friendship and they're looking at marriage eventually, having them to come in to do some premarital work. And I really separate the premarital work from the relational checkups. Relational checkups, they have some foundation. Premarital work, they may not have a clue about needs, wants, expectations. They may not have a clue about how is it that they have brought their family systems into play that's impacting their interpersonal relationship. So I find myself with premarital counseling doing much more teaching about relationships and to be able to reach out. I've reached out to the faith-based communities that have sent me couples that are not married, but couples that are committed to the relationship.
Yes. Excellent. So basically, anyone who's in a relationship of any type could qualify for these annual
Absolutely.
checkups. That is great to know. And I guess, I mean, I feel like you've covered so much in just a short amount of time. I was curious about, I guess, what would you say to a couple who's afraid to find out what your assessment says? You know what I mean?
I think that I would say to them, if you're committed to the continuation of this relationship, if you don't know, then it's going to at some point come back and it's going to be harmful. So looking at commitment and what does commitment really mean? Now, again, they may have been operating for a number of years with that 10% above the waterline, and they're very functional. But it's not until the life-changing events occur, kids are gone, job change, retirement, whatever those life changing events are, do they begin to realize, well, gee, who are we? Do I,
Mm.
do I really know you? One of the other things, Paul, that I will have couples to do during this checkup is to talk about the differences between dating and going out on dates.
Mm.
And also asking the question whether they're still courting each other. And some of the responses that I get, courting, we haven't done that since we first met.
Mm.
And
Wow.
again, Paul, these are issues that couples have just kind of forgotten about.
So, yeah, I think it's like a refresh in a way, right? Because I don't want to say people take people for granted, right? But I mean, sometimes if someone's around you all the time, you may not feel the need to pursue, which is how most people got together, some type of
That's right.
pursuit, some type of flirtation, some type of, bids for attention, affection, excitement, going on a nice date, going on an adventure, giving each other flowers, or,
That's right. That's right.
doing something out of the ordinary, going to karaoke. I don't know, just doing something silly. We get in our routines, right? And then the couple could feel stagnated, right? Somebody could feel
Absolutely.
stagnated. We don't have any adventure in our relationship.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And to have these types of adventures is absolutely critical. To be repetitive, Paul, it's amazing that couples have challenges defining what is a date versus what's dating.
Mm, yeah. Yeah.
They
Well,
just
can you tell me a little bit more about what you mean by that?
sure. Dating has to do with a relationship.
Hmm.
Dating has to do with the development of friendship.
Right.
Dating has to do with looking at a commitment to the future. Going out on a date is going to McDonald's
I see.
without any intentionality at all.
I see. Yeah.
So I really encourage couples to continue to court each other
Mm.
and to continue to date each other, because those have to do with relationships.
So keeping in that mindset of appreciation, of pursuit, or trying to, I don't know, make something more exciting, and to meet the needs of the other in a way as well.
Right, right. I've also suggested to couples, particularly couples that are coming in for this is of a relational checkup. I ask them about their marriage date.
Hmm.
Okay, we got married on the 5th of March. Are you celebrating every single month the 5th of the month? Well, no, why should we do that? Try it.
Hmm.
It could be breakfast. It could be flowers. Yeah. It could be candy. Some recognition of this is an important date. Put it in your calendars if you forget about it. But this is an important date. And again, during these relational checkups, it just helps individuals to re-energize their relationship. Again, it is preventative before major issues come about. And it is just so exciting to see couples kind of flourish within 2 sessions because they're here because they want to be here.
Hmm. And that's not a large commitment. I mean,
No,
it's not a large commitment, and most people are, hopefully, if they're taking care of themselves, seeing their doctor once a year or twice a year, seeing their dentist once or twice a year. In Arizona, seeing a dermatologist once a year is very recommended, right? Trying to just do maintenance. So I feel like this is a great opportunity for people. Um, Yeah. What am I missing? What's the I feel like there's got to be something I haven't asked about yet.
Um, one of the one of the other issues that I think is important, there are a number of domains that I take into consideration as I am engaging couples in this process. We talk about emotions, we talk about communication, we talk about quality time together,
Mm.
we talk about finances, we talk about sex, acceptance, forgiveness. But the bottom line of all of this, Paul, is how do couples maintain their friendship?
Mm. Hmm.
If they forget about their friendship, then the relationship has some real challenges.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think that, like you said, the basis, one of the ways to help a relationship become stronger. I believe you said something about communication is very important. But if you don't feel friendship for the other person, oh my goodness, right? Where is that going to go? That can't go anywhere
Absolutely,
good.
absolutely, absolutely. And the foundation for much of the work that I do with marital checkups is talking about the friendship. Because when I do premarital work, I go back to friendship.
Yes.
I go back to how did the two of you meet? What was the attraction? Walk them through their very short seasons. How do they go from, I kind of like you to I really like you to dating, to engagement, to courtship, to marriage? Because these seasons are tremendously important. And again, if you have a couple that's been married for a while, they've forgotten about the seasons. Everything kind of runs together.
Right.
Everything runs together.
Do you feel that putting in the context of seasons helps people understand where they are in their relationship?
Yes, yes, because one of the things that I do is I put um, big, big poster boards up on my wall,
Mm.
and I have them to identify when they met, and and I have them to label that season, and they both can have an opportunity to write on that piece of paper roles and responsibilities, and then another season roles and responsibilities.
Hmm.
And what I have them to do is to look at what has come from one season to filter into another season that has strengthened that season. Going into another season, what has gone from one season to another season, again, what has strengthened it. Because what you're doing is building a process of strength from season to season to season to season.
I see. So kind of having them reflect on not only what's going on the small level between us, but also what's happening on our timeline, our narrative as us as a relationship. And honestly, I'm so glad you're doing this because I do think if couples could learn to communicate, and it's really on a deeper level, like you said, like the not the top of the iceberg, but I think this is a practice people could put in their relationship even monthly. Like, okay, we saw Dr. Edward in July. We're going to go see him next July, but maybe monthly, like you said, celebrate the 5th of the month. What about, hey, let's have a Sunday or a Saturday afternoon where we go and we just talk about where we are in our relationship, right?
Absolutely,
and
absolutely.
and that narrative, that space to act non-defensively, right, like the Gottman training is helping with, like just listening to your partner or partners to just understand where they're at emotionally, is that connection that sustains a relationship. And looking back, with what I've heard you say a lot of times, although you didn't say it explicitly, is gratitude.
Hmm.
appreciation for the other person. Expressing that is so key. And I know you've obviously gone to school, you've gone through all these programs, so you're kind of just saying the stuff like it's coming off your tongue. But for a lot of people, they aren't educated to understand how much gratitude and appreciation means to the other person, and the words we say matter, and also what we don't say matters, right? So
Oh,
if we're
absolutely.
not expressing gratitude, if we're not expressing appreciation, we may, oh, I never said anything bad about you. Well, the relationship could still be in trouble, right? Because we don't have that connection. And so I really think it's good to have this. You may have started a trend here, and maybe other therapists coming up with your method here very soon once this is released. But I definitely think this is wise for couples. And I mean, gosh darn, divorce and separation and attorney fees. My God, I mean, you know how much that costs people financially, and the emotional stress and the
Huge.
not sleeping and the physical, they say with stress, physical problems start to happen, right? That's what doctors are
Absolutely.
saying. So if you got all the stress in your life due to a divorce that maybe was preventable, right? I mean, at some point, obviously the divorce is happening because it's not preventable, but at some point it might have been preventable, right? How do you know?
And
Right.
prevention is absolutely key.
Right.
And Paul, every couple that comes to me for this type of relational checkup, I give them at the end of their 2 sessions um, a box.
Mm.
And this is love maps exercises and open-ended questions.
Oh,
And this
lovely.
and this and this is from the Gottman Institute.
Yes.
That's my gift to them, that I want them on an intentional basis to pull this out and to go through these questions.
Yes. Yes, I love that. And people, well, I think that's a great thing. So it's like a prompt of cards they can pull out and ask each other these questions.
Yes, yes, yes.
A little
For
box of
example,
cards. Yeah.
for example, one of the love map. Put that up there. One of the love map exercise questions. Um, what is your partner's favorite way to spend an evening?
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Another one. Which people does your partner most admire in the world?
Okay.
Name one of your partner's major enemies.
Yeah.
Um, what is one of your partner's favorite magazines? Because these love maps coming from the Gottman Institute really begins to form the foundation of the relationship house.
Mm-hmm.
The walls, trust and commitment. But unless there is a sense of the love maps, which is a part of the foundation, then the walls are going to collapse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So this is my gift to them following our sessions.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, I think if anything, taking the time to think about your relationship, going to the annual relationship checkup or relational checkup, I think if anything, it can give people also hope, but also direction, and then a little sample of what therapy is like, even though that we wouldn't necessarily call this exactly a traditional therapy session at all, but just a little sample that, hey, as therapists, we're here, we're here for you. We're not trying to come here for our own agenda. Our agenda is to help people become happier and healthier, or help the community, or whatever it might be, right? But we trying to treat you with respect and to your culture and wherever you're coming from, to be able to get what you need.
Absolutely. And it is all having the foundation of relational stability,
Hmm.
not to concentrate on the challenges. Challenges are there, but what is it that couples can do to further their sense of stability?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And I think, and as people grow older, um, I think, I don't remember if this is in Erickson's writing, but I do know that people want some stability. It feel, they want stability in in a relationship. Perhaps it's a need for some people. Um,
They want stability, and they really want to have a sense of intimacy.
Mm-hmm.
But Paul, sometimes couples are very afraid of intimacy because it also translates to vulnerability.
Mm. Yeah, vulnerability. There's a thing to go on. Yeah, what are you? Well, I sense that vulnerability is a tough topic because if I'm vulnerable, it means I can get hurt, right? And
That's right.
we
That's
don't
right.
want to. I mean, humans, we avoid pain. I mean, that's a that's a human trait, right? We don't want that.
It's a sense of a couple saying, I'm not sharing that with you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure whether that's going to come back to me sideways.
Mm.
I'm not sure whether you're going to store that somewhere. And when we do have an argument, you're going to pull it out of whatever pocket that you put it in and then put it in front of me. So
Mm-hmm.
no, I'm not going to share that with you. Trust and commitment. And again, those two walls of the Gottman relationship house, they have to be strong, but you have to have a sense of foundation.
Yeah,
Without the trust, there's no commitment. And without commitment, there's no trust.
I see. Yeah, they complement each other.
They really do.
So yeah, I think I feel like you've really outlined this quite well. How do people get in touch with you? How do they contact you for this?
They can get in contact with me. My email address is ejamesassociates
Mm-hmm.
at gmail.com.
Mm-hmm.
I'm based out of Scottsdale, Arizona. They can be in contact with me and we can talk about them coming in for a relational checkup. I can do this either face to face, which I really prefer, or I can do it Zoom. And and Paul, what is so interesting, um, the couples that I'm seeing for a relational checkup are not my clients.
Oh,
So
okay.
therefore, there's not a diagnosis. So therefore, I am operating outside of the boundaries of our board of behavioral health examiners.
Mm, okay.
So I can see couples for a marital checkup cross lines, cross state lines.
Oh, okay. This I was going to ask that. So you could actually do over Zoom or Google, some sort of video service. You could, since this is not considered traditional psychotherapy. There's no diagnosis involved. This is a checkup, almost like this would be called essentially coaching. It fall into the category of coaching or just like
Right? Uh-huh.
more of an informal engagement. So you could actually see people anywhere in the U.S.
I can see anywhere
in the world.
anywhere that I have a language.
And oh, okay, yeah, wow, yeah, I love that.
They could be in Norway as long as they speak the English. Fine,
Well, this is
because
exciting.
because again, it's outside of the traditional psychotherapy realm.
Hmm.
It's outside of my license
Yeah.
because I'm doing this as a health coach.
Ah, yes. Of course, I know that you're very busy, so you probably don't have room for many more clients here in Arizona, and I know you're teaching as well. But this is exciting. Go ahead.
Yes,
So
yes,
I actually I remember you had mentioned this a month or two ago, but I had forgotten that you actually could see people anywhere. So I'm going to definitely put your email in the show notes. Is there any like website like that they should contact you through as well, or is it mostly just the email right now?
just the email right now.
I love it. Okay, I'll put that in there, and people can email you right from the podcast notes, and they can get in touch and
Absolutely.
request the annual relational checkup.
And Paul, this is just so exciting for me because it really provides an opportunity to step outside of the traditional bounds of therapy. Um, Again, there's no diagnosis, no insurance. It's all private pay, and individuals will be able to spend the time because of the commitment I'd rather see individuals who are committed to their relationships as opposed to couples that are calling me and they come in for the first appointment sitting at opposite ends of the couch, glaring at each other, and one saying, well, I don't want to be here.
Oh boy. That doesn't
Yeah.
sound good. Well, there are therapists out there that will work with them, and we can refer them if that's where you're at. Definitely, I would go to a clinic that specializes in couples therapy, or like what they call that, like rescue relationship stuff. That is not what this podcast is about, but it's definitely a service. But I definitely could see, with your expertise and your, what you've been doing for so many years, this is a definitely, you're using that experience to be able to get right to the points that will be important for couples to know. What do we need to work on? What are our goals for the year? How do we continue to be proactive in our relationship to make this a long-lasting, loving, and happiness? Because, like we said, relationships affect people's health, emotionally,
Absolutely.
physically, mentally, all of it.
Absolutely.
As we know, even like we said, stress. The doctors are saying stress it can tip you into being more susceptible to illnesses. So
it's huge.
So I
It's
mean,
huge.
who you live with and who you're engaged with in relationships, it can impact your health. That is what the correlation is saying with the science now. So I really appreciate all of your time and you've given me, and I'm excited for people to hear this episode.
Well, I'm excited because it, again, helps us as clinicians to get outside of the traditional bounds and say, what else can I do that's going to be effective when it comes to healthy relationships and stability?
That sounds wonderful. All right. I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
And there you have it. This has been another episode of the Intentional Clinician podcast. If you're enjoying this show, please share it with people you know. I would surely appreciate it. Or take just a minute to give us a rating on iTunes. As most of you know, I am passionate about preventing future violence in the United States. My colleagues and I have started a nonprofit called the National Violence Prevention Hotline, a 501c3 organization. We are endeavoring to gain funding and collaborators so that we can start a 24/7 hotline and chat line to reach potential perpetrators before they act violently. It is a bold effort to save lives and curb violence by working to connect with potential offenders while they are in the planning stages of violence, help to de-escalate them, and provide resources so that they can get appropriate professional help. The National Violence Prevention Hotline is looking to open up a conversation about violence in society, the causes, and the solutions. You can learn more by visiting our website, www.violencepreventionhotline.org. Join us online by signing our petition on the website, sharing the website with your network of people, donating to the cause if you like, and you can now even write your congressperson from our website with a simple form. I've said it before and I'll say it again. If you are a therapist looking for ethical and excellent medical billing services, check out therapistbillingservicesllc.com. That's www.therapistbillingservicesllc.com. Billing services created by therapists for therapists. If you're looking for an EMDR International Association consultant, I am a consultant and I can provide you the 20 hours you need to become EMDRIA certified. I have groups online and in person, and I do individual consultation. Just send me a message at the website and I'll get back to you. If you want to get trained in EMDR therapy, check out the great training opportunities with EMDR Training Solutions. I've worked with them before and they are phenomenal, so register today. If you are in need of counseling, do not hesitate to make an appointment at a local counseling center in your area. You can also make an appointment with the excellent clinicians in the Grand Rapids, Michigan area at Health for Life Counseling and the Trauma Informed Counseling Center of Grand Rapids by visiting www.healthforlifegr.com. The recording you just listened to consists of the personal opinions of Paul Krauss and his guest, and while these are based on the literature they have read and the experience in their fields, this should not be viewed as a definitive opinion on any subject. Listening to this podcast is not a substitute for treatment. If you're in a crisis, please dial 911 or the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 988. You can also text 741-741 and a live trained crisis counselor will respond. Did you know you could support your local bookstore by shopping at www.bookshop.org? You can order from the comfort of your own home online while supporting local brick and mortar businesses near you. If you are a therapist and you are not a member of your national or local therapy organizations such as the American Counseling Association or the American Mental Health Counselors Association, please get involved, at least pay the dues. It will help the lobbyists in our field keep us from becoming gig workers. And of course, there's the bonus of increasing mental health education around the United States and helping people understand what counseling is and promoting best practices within our profession. Until next time, I wish you all a safe and peaceful week.